recording. We're recording. Hello, everybody. So we're on lesson number 5 this week of our Still Life art course. And last week we were looking at tulips, and we looked at something called Tulip Mania from the 1650s. And we discussed the paintings of the artists, the Dutch artists that created these beautiful artworks. And so I asked everyone to put your tulips inside of a box, because I saw some paintings that I thought were quite interesting and would help us to look at the negative shapes and also to create a composition within inside of a box, or indeed a frame or something like that, that you could then draw from. And we could use some of the techniques that we learned about from Helen Gottlieb. So last week we were working on this box idea, and I thought that I only just about got a little bit of painting done, because I wanted to show everybody how I would go about it. I haven't finished that, and I suspect some of you haven't either. So we're going to have another week on that. I've also drawn a slightly larger one as well, because I felt mine was a little bit on the small side, so I thought it'd be really nice to go a little bit bigger as well. So we'll go over to the art wall, because I've got something else to show you as well, which is partly where this idea of composition came from. So we'll go over. So here's our lovely paintings. The two on the left and the right, I think, are more contemporary paintings, but these are some of the ones that kind of inspired the idea for the work we're doing this evening. So the idea being that you've got a frame, or a box in our case, that we could then create a composition within on the inside. And I brought along some examples of some other students' boxes from our class for you to see what other people have been doing as well. But the middle one here is obviously one of the Dutch paintings. And if you remember, some of the characteristics were the chiaroscuro sort of lighting, the really, really bright flowers against the super dark background to create this high contrast. And then the surreal, the hyper-real details of the tulips as well in there too. And the other little notice was that some of these compositions are sometimes impossible, because you don't get the flowers that appear in some of these compositions. You don't get some of them growing at the same time of the year. So they're very much an artistic creation from that point of view, as well as being still life and observation. Okay, so now what have I got to show you? So I just wanted to remind you of my box first of all. So I'm going to get rid of these for a second and put my box on the screen just here. So I've put my box with the two compositions on, and do you remember, if you remember, I suggested you could put some of the other things that we've been drawing in there as well. So we've got the teasels and the poppy seed heads. The one that I've been drawing has now gone a rather sort of saggy and things like that, or wilted, I should say, but I'm going to be working from that. And I took another photograph, and some of the flowers had opened up slightly, so that'll be interesting to carry on working with those. Now the artist is an artist called that I wanted to show you, and I thought of last week while we were working away, is an artist called Joseph Cornell. And he was an artist who he lived in isolation for a lot of his life, but he was very much inspired or influenced by the Surrealist movement. And he was also a filmmaker, but he created, oh gosh, I've got the wrong pictures up here. Hang on, didn't look at that. Let me just find it. Got another one. I'm sure I've got another one. Ah, there it is. That one shouldn't be on. There we go. So where was I? So yeah, he creates these what's known of as assemblages. So assemblage is where you take discarded items and you arrange them within a frame or a box, like the ones you can see here. So he spent a lot of his time doing that, and he was a self-taught artist, and he lived in isolation because he was looking after his mother and disabled brother at home, but he was very much in touch and aware of contemporary artists and things. So this style of art has been copied by so many people now. Many people do this this kind of thing as a little bit of a hobby, an artistic hobby these days. But this is where a lot of this idea came from. And indeed, some people create memory boxes and put things inside and arrange things in a very aesthetically pleasing way within these boxes like this. So the idea that we're using at the moment is a little bit similar to an assemblage, I suppose. Anyway, so we'll go over and have a look at a few of the other students' ones. Let's see if I've got another one. Yes, so these were some that I photographed on Friday, just to show you what other people are doing. So we've got one which is actually a trug turned up on its side with the tulips inside. I think the lady who was drawing this one and painting this one didn't use the handle in the middle, and then we've got a box which was for hanging keys in, and looks like a wine box over there on the other side as well. So a really lovely subject to work from. So there's one more thing, I think. Is there another one? Oh, there was that little one there as well. Okay, all right. So hopefully we can go over to the desk now, and I'll just remind you of what we were doing. So I put both pictures on here of the box that I've been working on, and you can see how my box has slightly changed. I can't move it for some reason. Should be able to move it. It's not letting me move at the moment. I don't know why. Oh, there you go. Right, I had to double click it. There we are. Look, so the one on the right hand side is what I was working from the other day, and you can see how the flower on the top left hand side has changed a little bit, and the leaves and things as well. But this was the composition I was working from on Friday, and the one I was working from with you last week is over here as well. So let me get right in there. So if you remember, we were working a little bit like Helen Gottlieb last week. So we drew out the composition, created a wash over the top of the surface, and then started to use white acrylic and black biro. So the idea of doing this was to create definition and mark making, but also when we then apply colour to the leaves, the poppy, and all those things, the white will hopefully lift those colours out of the background and help us create even more contrast, just like the chiaroscuro stuff that we were looking at from the Dutch artists. And then the background I'm doing nice and dark, as opposed to the box that I've got up here. So I'm creating much more contrast in here by doing the background dark. And that's as far as I got last week. So the thing to remember as well is that, you don't have to just paint it, draw it and finished. You can keep layering. So like I did with this tulip up here in the corner, I did actually work further into it in order to reinstate some of the textures and the details in there as well. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer to it. So see if it'll let me zoom in. Yep, there we go. And a bit more focus. Too bad. There we go. So once you've worked into the poppy with some paint, and you can build up again layers of paint and work back into it afterwards. You can add the biro back in over the top to build up some finer details and mark making. So yeah, as I said, last week I got as far as doing a little bit on this poppy in the corner here, and then we ran out of time. So I thought it would be nice for me to perhaps do a slightly bigger one. So I've made one that's a little bit bigger of the second composition or photograph on the screen. And I'm going to work into this a little bit more with biro, because I thought it'd be nice to just spend a bit more time, because I'm always trying to do things a little bit quicker for demonstration. So I'm going to slow down a little bit today, work into the biro, and then start adding the white acrylic. So the white acrylic is, if you want it to stand out and be opaque, then you need to get quite a good acrylic, I would say. This System 3 is okay, it's quite good. So it's got this is titanium white just here, so it has quite good opacity. And indeed, if you want opacity with some colors that are a bit translucent, you can add some of this to it and then build layers of color on top of it, and it will be really nice and bold and vivid as well. Okay, now the other thing about paint, which I haven't mentioned for some time, so I thought I'd mention it tonight, is if you want your paint to last a bit longer, as in stay wet for longer, you can use something called fluid retarder. So I've got some of that here, and basically it increases the time that the paint is wet for, allowing you to blend and mix it and so forth. Which so it's quite useful material. I don't know how long. Oh, this is 20. This will keep your paint wet for up to 50% longer, or 25% at the minimum. So it's quite nice stuff. You just add a tiny bit to your paint, and it keeps it wetter for longer, so you can do a bit more blending. So we're going to continue with this tonight. If your flowers have gone all like mine have, in fact, I'll show you my box now. My box, yes, you can still see them, but look, they're looking a bit tired and a bit flat, of course. They've also been inside of another box for a few days, so they're not looking great, but they'll still be a good reference to work from. But if you managed to do it last week, take a photograph, then use the photograph that you've got to continue working into your painting this evening. All right, and I'll talk through a little bit more of what I'm doing as I progress on this evening as well, and I'll talk a bit more about paint and things too a little bit later as well. Okay, so I hope you found that little bit of info on Joseph Cornell interesting. He's a very well-known artist who I first came across when I visited the Tate Gallery, or I think it was the Tate Britain actually, many years ago. It might have been the Tate Modern, but more likely the Tate Britain, where I saw his work the first time, and I was really intrigued by how things are arranged, which is probably why I chose to do these with you tonight. Okay, so we're going to continue then, but does anyone have any questions about what we're doing?
I looked at the video this afternoon, Jamie, because I missed obviously last time.
Yeah.
So I've just got a mixture of things that I can put into a box. So I shall do what you did last week today.
Yeah.
Would you be intending to make the entire background of the box black or dark, or would you do it as if there's a light source? So keep some of the ochre present.
I am going to probably make the whole background quite dark, very much like the Dutch artists do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of speed, would I be better to work on black paper?
You might find it difficult with black paper if you're painting if you're painting over the top of it, because you're going to get that black radiating through a little bit. You're probably better off doing something like we've done here, which is you can stain the paper first if you want to. It won't take long to dry, and then start drawing over the top. And that blue that starts you off will help you sort of get to the darker bit. Some people actually painted these as well, the boxes inside, so they had it dark to begin with. I didn't do that, but yeah, you could do that as well.
I like the way, I don't know whether it was intentional, but you had, when you were drawing it, you looked as if you had with the previous lesson, as if you've got a shadow underneath. And it was starting to make it look really 3D. That's why I wondered whether you were going to
like here, sort of thing. Yeah.
So I thought you've just got that slight glow of the yellow ochre.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Actually, you can just see. Yeah, because I didn't get as far over here, but I was kind of wondering if I should leave a little bit more light in this area and much more shadow around here as well. So
a lot of depth to it.
Oh, good. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So have a go, because it should be good fun, you know, once you get into it and things.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So we're carrying on then this evening. But if anyone, I know Lucy's just arrived. So if Lucy, you want to ask any questions about what we're doing, then please do. But does anyone else have any questions or queries about anything that we're doing? Cool. That's good. So I'm going to continue working in with the biro and probably bringing in a little bit of the white paint at the same time. And remember, the white paint there, it's like I was just saying about if you painted on a really dark background, you would have to layer, you would more than likely have to layer the acrylic paint over a few times. So if you, by putting white paint on here, it allows us to see it, but it also, it means that when you put the next layer of color on top, you're going to get some of that white coming through. So it's very much a layered sort of effect. To create that chiaroscuro, which is the heavy shadows and the bright lighting on the work as well. Okay, wonderful. All right, so but if you do get stuck, or if you want to show me how you're getting on, please ask, and I'm waiting. Well, I'm not waiting, I'll be doing this, but you know. Yeah, so I thought I would work a little bit more into this picture this evening. I'm going to get rid of the old one, which I think is that one. Yep. And lock it up. Move this one over a bit. Enlarge it so you can see it a bit better. And I'm going to start working into this. I just really fancied spending a little bit longer working into the biro to try and make it a little finer. So because my flowers and things have changed, I'll be looking up at the screen occasionally to see what I'm working from. And I've still got all the flowers in my box to refer to as well.
I like that drawing.
Thank you.
Very much. It's got a little bit more bend in it.
Yeah, there's a bit more curves in it. If I was drawing this for a design, I like to exaggerate those sorts of things, the curves and the details.
Okay.
To create more interest, a bit like that work that I showed before from Angie Lewin, the designer.
I absolutely love that book. I treated myself.
Oh, did you? Oh, brilliant.
I absolutely love it.
It's lovely, isn't it? She's done all textiles and
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the same. I've got it here.
Have you? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh, you've got. I think you've got a different one to me. Look, I've got this one.
Yeah, that's the one I've got.
Yeah, yeah.
This is this is reflections on favourite plants. This one.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Can I just have a look? Which one you got? It's called reflections.
That's the one I've got. Yeah.
Okay.
Book of Flowers.
Lovely.
Yeah, isn't it wonderful? The colours, they're kind of limited colours, aren't they? And they're very subdued, but at the same time, they're really lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's a printmaker as well.
Yes.
Are there pictures of her doing her printmaking in that one? Was it just the flowers?
Yes, there were in the one I'm looking at.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I've got something from a flower decoration. They're not real flowers.
Oh, yeah.
But they've got.
Is this for your piece? Yeah.
Such a long stalk that I'm going to have to pretend that they're in the box because there's no way I'm going to cut these down. So I'm doing it as if I can kind of get it in the box.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Pretend.
Yeah. You can crop it around the sides and things.
Yeah.
And if you've got a white paper behind it, that'll cast some shadows.
Yeah. That's very.
Then why not try something else? You know, it's a good idea.
Actually, I could put it on the floor because the floor's wooden, so it
Oh yeah.
It looks like a box.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Actually, that's really good on white paper because it gives
like a strong shadow.
Yeah, it's like a extra layer of shade and the spiky bits stand out.
Yeah. So as you can see on this one, I've already added quite a bit of detail and things. So I'm just sort of going over it gently. And when I say gently, I'm really just touching the surface of the paper. I may end up covering up some of it, but I can always put with the white and so forth, but I can always put some more pen over the top. It's a nice shadow on here. One of the things that I mentioned in the other video is that depending on where because I was sitting with the box to my right hand side, so I could only really see one side of the box, not on the inside of the box, if you see what I mean. So most of what I'm doing here is literally just hatching, cross hatching. But there's a whole range of marks you can do. On the website, there is you can download a sheet with lots of different mark making on, a bit like this one. I'll just get it. So if you wanted to have practice at some different mark making techniques, these are very good. You may not use all of them, of course, but they give you a bit of practice, and they're a lovely way to sort of warm up. And I often find myself, when I'm on the phone, for example, the typical thing, I often find myself doing loads of this all over the place, and sometimes I quite like them. So they're like that classic doodle thing. But we've got the cross hatching here. Look, we've got circles, another cross hatch, broken lines, alternating lines. That's quite a nice one. I'll just do down here. So you do lines going one way, and then you go back the other way. and you create these like ridges, like a ploughed field or something. It's one that I always like doing or demonstrating at school. Students quite like it. Like that. And then you'll have seen me do scribbles before. And the more scribbles you do, the darker it will get. But you can also, oh, sorry, you can also go much lighter with the pen. So just barely touching the surface of the paper. I may have done this already during this course. I know one or two of you have missed it. So. And then the cross hatching is literally lines. That's your hatching. And your cross hatching goes, just basically goes in different directions, but you can create a very fine shade by going over them. I don't know if you can see that, but just pin myself. There you go.
Okay, so as you can see, I'm just working at the moment into the details with the biro pen, and you can see that I've already put some marks underneath, and I'm working back over the top of those marks. I'm also interested from the photo there with some of the darker areas in the teasel, and you'll see me later adding some paint on top of there as well to create those spikes that you can see. And of course over on the poppy seed there, I decided that I was going to work into the shadows quite heavily, bearing in mind I'm going to be painting the background a little bit more as well. And yeah, I started to add some more detail in. You'll see that I start, and I mentioned this while I'm working, that I paint over with a slightly watered down white acrylic in order to start to see some of those shadows. And the interesting thing is, as we progress through drawing and things and painting, I do layer the acrylic paint quite a lot, even over the white and then over the colors, in order to bring them out of what will be a much darker background. Just then we were discussing what colors I'd used to paint the background, and I think it was a primary, no, it was indigo and a green. I can't remember which green it was. So I'm just picking out some of the highlights on here to help things come forward. And then very shortly, what I decide to do is bring in a wash to the background to help start to lift things out of the box itself. In other words, to create some stronger contrasts, very much like the paintings that we were looking at earlier from the Dutch artists, from the Dutch masters. So here we go. I'm putting in kind of a little bit of a wash of watered down indigo blue acrylic paint just in the background here. Now all of these things you can do quite loosely really, because we're not working in and refining anything at the moment. We're just trying to build up some of the tones and the highlights to create the image that we're after. Here I was using a little bit of raw umber over the top of the blue, and you can see how those colours have mixed on there to create this kind of green, dull green behind there. And then even while that's still a little bit damp, I'm working back into the background with the biro to add some deeper shadows and so forth. And you can see how already that indigo has started to contrast a little bit and create like a darker area behind our tulips and so forth. So having a bit of fun with this now. So now I'm using, I think it was a green or burnt umber. I can't remember, to be honest with you. I may see it on the plate in a few minutes. But again, I'm applying a second layer of colour over the top, and you can see those colours, because I've used it quite thin or in a translucent way, those colours are mixing really nicely. So as opposed to last week where I just worked solely on one little corner, this week I was working across the whole of the image. And oh, I missed it, but I did put some white bits on the teasel down in the corner. So I'm working back into it with the biro using cross hatching as well. And then working back into the leaves and a lot of the detail in there as well. And now we're going in with more of a yellowy green. And again, these can be very thin layers of paint, which you then work back over. A little bit later, when I'm working on the tulips, I use a bit of thicker paint and dry brushing. So dry brushing creates that nice textural painterly effect on there, which again helps to lift out the tulips and flowers from the background. And it's quite a lot of fun to play around with the colours too. If you're wondering, if you're thinking perhaps the image is a little bit light, it's because of the reflections of the lights in the studio. If you look around the teasel there, see how it's a little bit kind of reddish? That's because the light does reflect on biros to a degree, so you end up with these other colours, reds and things, browny reds. Somebody mentioned in the class about what do you do outside of the box on there. So I started, you just saw me a second ago, perhaps adding in some details around there. So I'm going back in with the blue now. Oh, actually, no, that was a purple. I put some purple on. I really like purple on top of these colours. Purple gives it a little bit more depth and things like that. And then I've gone back over and started working with the poppy, and you'll see at some point that I switched back to the biro again as well. So, and I'm adding in some of these pinks and peachy sorts of colours in there as well, blending as I go. It's important sometimes to blend the paints with acrylics as you go, because obviously, as we know, they do dry rather quickly. But if you've got some of the retardant, which is the stuff that helps keep your paint wetter for longer, you could use that. Now there is a little bit, obviously my box just here has a white background, but I'm going for this darker background. So there is to a degree a little bit of experimentation or creativity with the background, or artists' prerogative, just to be creative with the background. So we can see now that we're starting to darken down the background. The flowers are standing out against that background as well, and I'm having a lot of fun building up those acrylic colours. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this evening. I'm doing a little bit of doodling around the outside. We did say for a joke it's a bit of a doodle, but I'm just enjoying using the biro basically to create mark making just up there. You can't quite see it now, but bringing in some more highlights as well. So we're creating a bit more depth. There we go. A bit more of the doodling around the outside for experimentation. So anyway, as I said, I hope you've enjoyed watching and listening tonight. And if you got this far, thank you very much. And I hope you have fun making your art. And I'll talk to you again soon. Cheery bye. See you next lesson.